You've used electricity every single day of your life, every light switch, every outlet, every device you've ever charged, billions of interactions with electrical power, stretching back to the moment you were born in a hospital, lit by electric lights. But have you ever actually understood it? Have you ever asked, what's happening inside those wires when I flip the switch? What travels from the outlet to my lamp? Most people haven't. They just accept it. Something about electrons, something about current. Flows like water. Good enough. Except Nikola Tesla, the man who invented the alternating current system humming through your walls right now, would tell you that's not just incomplete. It's backwards. The electricity in your home doesn't flow through the wires. The electrons barely move, a few millimeters per hour, slower than grass grows, yet the light appears instantly. Energy arrives at 60% the speed of light. Something is traveling. But it's not in the wire, it's outside it, around it. The wire is just a guide for something invisible that Tesla understood with such clarity, he could feel it like a physical force. When you see what he saw, you realize you've been living inside a technology you fundamentally misunderstand. Let me show you. The standard explanation goes like this. Electrons flow through wires like water through a pipe. The power plant pushes them in one end, they rush through the copper, and they come out the other end to power your devices. You probably learned this in school. You've seen the diagrams, little dots with arrows, marching single file through a wire. It's not just wrong. It's the exact opposite of what's happening. Tesla understood this over a century ago. He didn't just tinker with electricity, he thought in electricity. He could close his eyes and watch complete machines operate in his imagination, feel the currents pulse, see the fields rotate. While Edison was burning through thousands of trial and error experiments, Tesla was running perfect simulations in his mind. And what Tesla saw was something most people still miss today. The wire isn't carrying power. The wire is guiding something that travels beside it, around it, through the empty space you thought was nothing. The power isn't inside the metal. The power is in the invisible fields that wrap around the metal like an envelope around a letter. The letter could be blank. What matters is what surrounds it. This isn't mysticism. This isn't a metaphor. This is measured physics that powers every device in your home. Let me show you where the energy actually travels. Start with something you can picture. Imagine a long rope stretched across a field. You're holding one end. A friend holds the other. Now flick your wrist sharply. Just once. Watch what happens. A wave ripples down the rope. A hump of motion that travels from your hand all the way to your friend's hand in less than a second. Here's the question. Did the rope travel to your friend? No. The rope stayed exactly where it was. Every inch of rope is still in your hands, still stretched across the field. Nothing moved from you to your friend, but something arrived. Energy arrived. The energy of your flick propagated down the rope as a wave. The rope was the guide. The rope was the medium. But the rope itself didn't go anywhere. Now imagine that wave is invisible. Imagine you can't see the rope flex. You just know that when you flick your end, something happens at the far end, instantly, or close to it. That's what's happening in the wires in your walls. The electrons are the rope. They barely move. They wiggle in place, especially in AC power, where they literally vibrate back and forth 60 times per second without ever actually traveling anywhere. But the wave moves, the energy moves. Tesla called this understanding grasping the wheelwork of nature. He didn't see wires as pipes. He saw them as guides for invisible ripples propagating through space itself. Most people never think about this. They imagine electrons sprinting through copper, fast little particles racing to power their toaster. Stop and think about that for a second. If electrons actually rushed from the power plant to your home, traveling hundreds of miles through wires, how could the light turn on the instant you flip the switch? The answer isn't that electrons are incredibly fast. The answer is that electrons aren't what's doing the traveling. Let's put actual numbers on this. In a typical copper wire carrying household current, electrons drift at about 0.00028 meters per second. That's roughly 1 foot per hour. A snail moves at 0.03 meters per second, over 100 times faster. If you plugged in a lamp and had to wait for electrons to physically travel from the outlet to the bulb, just 3 feet away, you'd wait about 3 hours. But the light comes on now. So what's traveling at near light speed if the electrons are barely crawling? The electromagnetic field. When you flip a switch, you don't send electrons racing through the wire. You create a disturbance in the electromagnetic field that surrounds the wire. That disturbance, that wave, propagates at roughly 60 to 70% of the speed of light. The wave reaches your light bulb almost instantly, and when it arrives, it pushes the electrons already in the bulb's filament into motion. those local electrons start vibrating, colliding with atoms, generating heat and light. The energy didn't travel inside the wire. The energy traveled in the invisible field wrapped around the wire. Tesla visualized this perfectly. He once wrote that he could see the fields as clearly as others saw physical objects. While his contemporaries thought of wires as tiny highways for particles, Tesla saw the truth. The wire is a boundary condition, a guide rail. The real action is happening in the space that looks empty. But wait, if the energy is in the fields around the wire, why do we need the wire at all? Here's where it gets strange. The wire isn't carrying electricity. The wire is shaping the electromagnetic field so that energy flows in a useful direction. Think about it like this. Imagine you're holding a garden hose, but instead of water inside the hose, the water is flowing in a sheath around the hose. The hose itself is dry inside. It's just telling the water where to go. That sounds absurd for water, but it's exactly what's happening with electrical energy. The energy travels in the electromagnetic field that exists in the space between the wires, not inside them, between them. This is why a power cable has two conductors, a hot wire and a neutral or return wire. The energy doesn't flow down one wire. It flows in the field that exists in the gap between both wires. Each wire guides one edge of the field, and the energy streams through the middle. Tesla didn't just understand this, he used it. His entire AC power system is built on manipulating fields, not pushing particles. That's why he could step up voltages to hundreds of thousands of volts for efficient long-distance transmission, then step them back down for safe home use, all using transformers that work purely through electromagnetic induction. No physical particles cross from one transformer coil to another. Only fields, only waves. You can test this yourself. Hold a fluorescent tube near a high-voltage power line. Don't touch the line. Just stand near it. The tube will glow. Energy is reaching the tube through empty air. The field extends beyond the wire, and your tube is intercepting it. The wire is not a container. It never was. But that raises another question. If the energy is in the field, and the field is in empty space, what exactly is a field? What's actually there? Now we're at the core. An electromagnetic field isn't nothing. It isn't just a mathematical convenience that physicists invented to make equations work. A field is a real physical thing. It contains energy. It has structure. It exerts forces. It can be measured. When you move a magnet near a wire, you don't mysteriously create electricity from nothing. You transfer energy that was stored in the magnetic field. That energy enters the electromagnetic field around the wire and propagates as a wave. James Clerk Maxwell figured this out in the 1860s. He unified electricity and magnetism into a single phenomenon, electromagnetism, and showed that oscillating electric and magnetic fields create waves that travel through space. Light is one of those waves. Radio is one of those waves. And the 60 hertz hum of alternating current in your walls, that's one of those waves too. Just a much, much lower frequency. Tesla grasped Maxwell's equations not as abstractions, but as felt reality. He saw the fields, he perceived the oscillations. When he designed the polyphase AC system that now powers the entire planet, he wasn't moving electrons. He was choreographing invisible waves. Here's what this means. The energy powering your laptop right now is not traveling inside the wire. It's traveling in the electromagnetic field, a field that is as real as the wire itself, as real as the table under your hands. Space isn't empty. Space is filled with these fields, layered on top of each other, rippling and interacting. You've been living inside those fields your whole life. Every time you flip a switch, you send a ripple through the structure of space itself, and that ripple is what lights up the room. Let's destroy the picture you've been carrying in your head. In your normal experience of the world, electricity flows through wires like water through pipes. Power plants generate electrons. Those electrons rush through cables. They enter your home, pass through your devices, and flow back out. A river of particles, input to output. Simple. You probably picture the wire as the highway and the electrons as tiny cars racing along at incredible speed. Wrong. Completely fundamentally wrong. The electrons are not even the message. The electrons are barely involved. In a DC circuit, electrons drift so slowly you could outpace them by crawling on your belly. In an AC circuit, the system Tesla designed, the system powering your home right now, the electrons don't even drift. They vibrate in place. 60 times per second, they shudder back and forth. They never go anywhere. They oscillate like a crowd doing the wave, each person rising and sitting without ever leaving their seat. The wave moves. The people don't. Let me prove it to you. If electrons actually flowed from power plant to home, you could trace them. Tag an electron at the generator, wait, and find it in your kitchen. This has been measured. It doesn't happen. The electrons in your wall socket are the same electrons that were there when the house was built. They haven't traveled from anywhere. But energy has traveled, continuously, for years. How? The energy is in the field. The electromagnetic field that surrounds, not fills, surrounds, the wire. That field propagates at near light speed. That field is what carries power. The wire is just a guide, shaping the field's direction, keeping the wave on course. Think about what this means. You've never received an electron from the power plant, not once in your entire life. What you receive, what your devices actually consume, is a pattern, a ripple in the electromagnetic field, a wave that began at a generator and traveled to your home, not through the wire, but around it. The electricity powering your home never actually travels to your home. Only the energy pattern does, like a whip crack traveling down a rope that stays in your hand, like a stadium wave circling an arena while every fan stays seated. This isn't a metaphor. This isn't simplified for a YouTube audience. This is how it actually works. This is what Tesla knew. This is what Maxwell's equations describe with mathematical precision. This is what engineers account for when they design power systems, transmission lines, antennas. The energy is in the fields around the wire. The wire is just telling those fields where to go. And once you see this, you can't unsee it. Every wire in your home is surrounded by an invisible envelope of electromagnetic energy. The copper is just the boundary, the guide. The real power is flowing in the space that looks empty, the space between the wires, around the wires, beside the wires. You're not plugged into a river of electrons. You're plugged into a field. Now here's what people miss when they learn just about electricity. This isn't an isolated quirk. This isn't some weird exception that only applies to power lines. This is how the universe works. The same principle, energy traveling as waves through fields rather than as stuff through conduits, shows up everywhere. Once you see it, you can't stop seeing it. The same electromagnetic field that carries power around your wires also carries light from the sun, radio signals from a tower, Wi-Fi from your router, X-rays through your body. The warmth you feel when you stand in front of a fire, all the same phenomenon, all waves in the electromagnetic field. The only difference is frequency. Light oscillates at around 500 trillion hertz, 500 trillion waves per second. The AC power in your walls oscillates at 60 hertz, 60 waves per second. That's it. That's the only difference. Light is just electricity vibrating incomprehensibly fast. Electricity is just light vibrating unimaginably slow. Tesla understood this. He saw electricity and light as the same thing, just playing different notes on the same instrument. When you flip a light switch, you're not just turning on a bulb, you're converting one frequency of electromagnetic wave, the 60 hertz in your wall, into another frequency, the 500 trillion hertz your eyes can see. Same field, same fundamental phenomenon, different speeds, and this is where it gets personal. You're not separate from this. You're not observing electromagnetic fields from the outside. You're immersed in them right now. Light waves are hitting your eyes and being converted to signals in your brain. Radio waves are passing through your body at this very moment, hundreds of them, carrying music and data and conversations you'll never hear. The heat in your blood is infrared radiation, another frequency of the same field. Your nervous system runs on electricity. Tiny electrical impulses propagating as waves through the fields around your neurons are generating your thoughts about this very topic. You are an electromagnetic creature living inside an electromagnetic universe powered by electromagnetic waves you've been misunderstanding your entire life. Tesla felt this. He described moments where he could perceive the fields directly, flashes of insight where the invisible became visible, where the rhythms of the universe revealed themselves not as equations, but as sensations. He wasn't mystical. He was just paying attention into what's actually there. The fields don't just surround the wires in your walls. They surround you. They fill every cubic inch of space you've ever occupied. They are the medium through which all light travels, all radio waves propagate, all energy moves. Space isn't empty. Space is the field, and you're swimming in it. So what travels through the wires in your walls? Nothing. Nothing travels through the wires. The electrons vibrate in place. The copper sits there, passive, doing no transportation at all. What travels is a wave, an electromagnetic wave, that moves around the wires at 2/3 the speed of light. The wire guides the wave. The wire shapes the field. But the wire is not the carrier. The carrier is space itself. Understanding this isn't just about electricity. It's about how we know things, how we build mental pictures that feel true but aren't. how we accept explanations that are really just names. For most of human history, we had no idea what electricity was. We saw lightning and called it the anger of gods. We felt static shocks and called it mysterious fire. We had words, but no understanding. Then came Faraday, who showed that electricity and magnetism were connected. Then came Maxwell, who unified them into fields and waves. Then came Tesla, who saw those fields so clearly he could build machines in his imagination that worked perfectly when made real. He took abstract equations and turned them into the power grid that now wraps the entire planet. 140 years ago, Tesla stood on a stage and let 1,000,000 volts course around his body, not through it, around it, while he remained unharmed. He was demonstrating what he knew. The energy was in the field. The field traveled on the surface. If you understand the geometry, you can dance with forces that would kill someone who doesn't. That understanding now powers every hospital, every home, every server running the internet, every factory on Earth. The fact that we can understand this, that the universe is built on principles we can uncover, measure, predict, and use, is not trivial. It's the greatest achievement of the human mind. You could have lived your whole life flipping switches, never asking what actually happens. Most people do. Most people accept the comfortable illusion of electrons flowing like water. But now you know. Now when you flip that switch, you'll feel the truth beneath the motion. You're not pushing particles through a pipe. You're sending a ripple through the structure of space, a wave in an invisible field, a pulse of energy traveling around the wire through what looks like nothing at almost the speed of light. That's what electricity really is, not a river of electrons, a wave in the fabric of reality, not comfort, not simplicity, truth. If this journey into what electricity actually is changed how you see the wires in your walls, subscribe and share it with someone who still thinks electrons race through copper like water through pipes. What other everyday phenomena do you think hide this kind of depth? What else have we been misunderstanding our entire lives? Tell me in the comments.